as reported by Jeff Darlington of ESPN on Wednesday afternoon, Deebo Samuel, like the do-it-all running back who was featured as do-it-all wide receiver, who was featured as a running back in Kyle Shanahan's system, who put up massive numbers and is due for a huge contract extension, has requested a trade from the San Francisco 49ers. Okay, like we got, it's like, all right, we have the 15 biggest shocking things of an NFL offseason. I don't know. Let's add one more and have Deebo Samuel request a trade. Adam Schefter reported on Tuesday that the 49ers were perfectly fine with paying Deebo Samuel whatever he wanted. Like, just take the money, and Deebo didn't want it. The reason a deal hadn't happened is Deebo doesn't want to play for the 49ers. We'll get into the draft ramifications of this, but I'm curious, Traps, I mean, what's your sort of, initial reaction to the idea that Deebo Samuel wants out of San Francisco?
Yeah, there has to be more to this than just a contract disagreement, because we've seen not only a bunch of receivers move this offseason, marquee wide receivers, but we've also seen like Stephon Diggs get a gigantic extension and Christian Kirk make over $20 million per year, average per year. So it seems like if he really wanted it, based on those Schefter reports from last week, that Deebo Samuel could probably get really any type of money that he wanted. So I wonder if leading into the draft, and there's always those juicy reports on the night of the draft, that we may hear more about what is going into Deebo Samuel not wanting to be with the 49ers, a team that, he's blossomed into this multifaceted wideout running back hybrid. And there hasn't really been anything in the Kyle Shanahan's past or John Lynch's past where they're like anti-player coaches or GMs. Like they seem to be pretty well liked by their players. So I'm really interested to see if something else comes out related to this report-wise, why Deebo Samuel doesn't want to play for a perennial playoff contender in the 49ers.
Yeah, I mean, Josh, the thing too is like, excuse me, not only is it a successful team, but like he's perfect in Kyle Shanahan's system.
Absolutely.
I mean, I can't believe I'm suggesting this, but is it a Jimmy Garoppolo thing?
I mean, it could be. This is all very fresh as we came on here, but I think one thing that I saw was that he has an issue with his usage in San Francisco's offense, which would be completely surprising to me because I think they've been about as creative as you could possibly be in the ways that you use Deebo Samuel. So not a lot of this is making sense right now. I actually did a story on kind of the changing of the wide receiver markets in recent years, because prior to DeAndre Hopkins's $27.25 million contract extension in terms of annual value, we had seen just 5 wide receivers picked in the first round in the 2 years prior. In the 2 years since that extension, we've had 11 wide receivers picked in those 2 years in the first round. And now we're looking at least 5, probably 6, maybe even 7 in the first round of this year's draft. So I think we're kind of starting to see some of these teams looking at the money that's being given to these wide receivers and seeing a greater opportunity to draft young and bring in some new faces.
I mean, I don't want to poo-poo y'all's points here at all, because you guys are, you come on the podcast, you don't get paid any extra for it. You have to deal with me being late all the time. But like, I really don't think this is about the money. Yeah. I mean, and I do, certainly there are going to be some issues coming up, and we talked about this a lot on this podcast, but the DeAndre Hopkins contract was an outlier. It was a restructure that caused his money to get up to $27.5 million per year. And because, alpha receivers just, it's like, I don't care how you dummy up this contract. I want to get more than Hopkins. Devontae Adams and Tyreek Hill both did that. And so now you have this like weird situation with AJ Brown, DK Metcalf eventually, Deebo Samuel, all these guys who are Terry McLaurin, who are up for after the third year, who can be extended. Like, they don't want to be like, well, we'll just take $22 million. I feel like I'm like a, 10th or 11th best wide receiver in football. No, nobody's going to do that if you think you're the best receiver in football. But I don't think this is about the money for Deebo. I think there's something else going on here, and it's very bizarre. Maybe if it's the usage, like, I mean, he turned into one of the most exciting players in professional football last year. Like, there are 3 or 4 wide receivers that you can have casual conversations about. And he jumped into that discussion because he's running out of the backfield and scoring all these touchdowns. And so, like, I guess I don't get it. Maybe the 49ers approached him about a deal that, was like, oh, well, you're kind of a running back too. So, I mean, that could have been, potentially, a speed bump for contract negotiations. I don't know, but he's not guaranteed to be traded. However, if he were traded, Traps, what landing spots do you think would work for Deebo?
Well, I think the Jets have to be the first team that you would circle because they were, down to the wire apparently in that Tyreek Hill trade. The Saints, the Packers would make sense. It seems like if the Chiefs are wanting to transition, I know, seriously, well, they need it. But if the Chiefs are ready to transition, and there were some reports after they traded Tyreek Hill that they want to transition with Juju Smith-Schuster to like a bigger yards after the catch type wide receivers, that type of offense. Deebo Samuel is probably the ultimate guy to be in that offense with that new philosophy, if that is the case. They have the 2 first-round picks. They have a bunch of extra selections like in the top 100, top 150. I could see Brett Veach swinging for the fences there and bringing in Deebo Samuel. The only weird part would be, like, is he going to ultimately just pay him as much as Tyreek Hill? Like, that seems to be a little weird. The one theory that's popped into my head about maybe what could be the underlying issue for Deebo Samuel, maybe they've told him, hey, Trey Lance is going to take over, and maybe either Deebo, one, is not really that sold on Trey Lance from watching him in practice last year and, those few relief appearances, or they've told him, we're going to use Trey Lance in the run game, in the designed run game a lot. You're not going to see as many carries and high percentage throws in your direction because we're going to incorporate Trey Lance as kind of that running threat when without Jimmy Garoppolo, you needed that other element in the running game. And that's where Deebo Samuel had over 1,800 yards last year. That could be his usage may not be the same going forward. And I think maybe he likes to be that multi-faceted kind of pioneer at this new position.
I think the Packers and the Chiefs are fascinating landing spots for Deebo Samuel sure. Because obviously the Packers have Allen Lazard and how am I blanking?
No one.
What's that?
No one. Pretty much no one.
Sammy Watkins. Sammy Watkins is who they signed. I was like, who did they sign?
Oh, yeah. I forgot about him.
But like Sammy Watkins isn't even guaranteed to make the team out of training camp. The problem is I don't see how, if you're San Francisco, you can reasonably trade Deebo Samuel to the Packers. It feels like they have played each other in the playoffs like 5 times. It just always feels like Shanahan's up against Matt LaFleur. You trade Deebo Samuel to Matt LaFleur and let Aaron Rodgers have Deebo, and he's going to wreck shop in Green Bay, and it could potentially be, an impediment to you making it back to the Super Bowl or making it, advancing in the playoffs. The Chiefs, you don't want to have to deal with facing Deebo in the Super Bowl, but the Chiefs would, in a heartbeat, the Chiefs give up a first-round pick for Deebo, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Is it more
I think he's probably more than a first, though. I think just 1 first is not enough.
Yeah. I don't know. It's 2 first, though. That's kind of steep because he's due a big contract.
But the Chiefs have like a bunch of picks on day 2, right? Like they have.
Yeah, because they got those second-round picks from Miami.
They have 50 and 62. Then in round 3, 94 and 103. So, if I'm Brett Veach, do they have 29 and 30? Which one?
Do they have 29 and 30?
29, 30, and then in the second round, 50, 62. In the third round, 94 and 103. So if I'm Brett Veach, I'm calling San Francisco and saying, I'll give you one of those first, and then you take your pick from those extra day 2 picks. And is that enough for Deebo Samuel? Seeing as though we're going to have to give him a contract pretty close to, what we ultimately gave Tyreek Hill. But that's what I would offer, and I think that would seem kind of fair based on what we've seen at the wide receiver market this offseason.
So using the Rich Hill of Pat's Pulpit trade chart, 30 is worth 196 and 50 is worth 115. So 196 plus 115 gives you 311 points, which is roughly in between 15th overall and 16th overall. I think that's kind of fair.
Yeah, I do too.
Because remember, we're talking about these teams who, not to conflate the issue here by pointing out that producer Deebo, has noted that the Eagles could take a wide receiver, with one of those first round picks. The Saints are certainly in the market for a wide receiver. even with the contractual, obligations that you're going to have to Deebo Samuel, I mean, if you told me I can either draft like Garrett Wilson at 15 or get Deebo Samuel at 15, I mean, it's a no-brainer. You take Deebo Samuel, right?
Yeah, for me. And I think it comes back to the Jets. At the end of the day, maybe they give up number 10 overall, and maybe they maybe they get a little bit in return as well. Maybe it's number 10 overall for Deebo Samuel and a little bit more or something like that, considering the salary cap implications. But I think it makes a lot of sense.
I was going to say, just to your point, San Fran has 61.
61 is their first pick. Yeah.
Yeah.
I wonder if they could get away with giving up 105 is probably like you get 10 for Deebo and 105. Does that work?
Or I mean, even a future pick, it doesn't, whatever they decide is fair compensation, but the Jets have already shown their cards. They tried to get Tyreek Hill and that obviously did not work. It's a similar offensive scheme. You've got Robert Saleh there, who, as far as I know, is on good terms with San Francisco, having been there before. So that makes a lot of sense to me because I think the Jets are probably going to use that number 10 overall pick on a wide receiver regardless. And you already have a known commodity in Deebo Samuel. Now, the other side of this is we've already seen Tyreek Hill and Devontae Adams force trades to their homes where they wanted to be. Maybe Deebo Samuel just wants to come back to Carolina. Maybe he just
nobody wants to.
No Panthers talk. No Panthers talk.
To the Panthers.
Nobody. I applaud you for worming the Panthers into this podcast, Josh. God knows we haven't had enough. By the way, I think the Panthers are out of a quarterback now. I'm convinced that they're going offensive lineman.
I kind of
back
too.
I think they're going to trade.
You see what happens when you mention Carolina? I'm immediately like, "Oh, number 6." By the way, also just totally random, but so Daniel Jeremiah is going to do NFL Live, and Mel Kiper is going to do NFL Total Access. Have you seen the photo that that the NFL Network or NFL Media sent out? They took Daniel Jeremiah's face and attached Mel Kiper's hair.
Nice,
and it's like it is absolutely Mel Kiper's face and DJ's hair, and it's okay. Look at Kiper's hair is absolutely
completely different. It's
Yeah.
The most famous hair in NFL media, I think. Still.
That's probably right.
Right? Is there anyone else that's known for their hair? I think Kuiper's that slicked back Dracula look has been going strong for 30 years. It is.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
One last thing on Deebo. Mike LaFleur was in.
Oh, no. He was saying that they have 29 and 30, not that they would give up 29 and 30. I mean, I don't know, man. If you're the Jets and you've been trying to get Tyreek Hill is an incredible wide receiver, of course, but the Jets were trying to get Tyreek Hill in order to accentuate what Zach Wilson does, which throw down the field. I think they're better off getting Deebo Samuel, who similar scheme fit, right? Because you have Mike LaFleur is your OC there in New York with the Jets, and if I'm trying to make Zach Wilson's life easier, I don't want somebody who's just running vertical routes and having him try and bomb it as deep as possible. I want somebody who's getting open underneath and picking up yak, and that's Deebo's specialty.
Well, I feel like right now Mike LaFleur is probably going nuts, wanting to trade for Deebo Samuel because he was in San Francisco with Deebo Samuel. If there's anyone that's an offensive coordinator calling the plays that would know how to deploy Deebo better than Kyle Shanahan, it's probably Mike LaFleur who's calling those plays there with the Jets.
And with the Jets, not to disparage the Jets, but it's all right, we're probably not going to get, we're probably not going to run into Deebo in the playoffs anytime soon. So,
Exactly.
let's send him to New York. Any other landing spots? I'm just trying to the Carolina one's not crazy, I guess. I just think I don't know if the Panthers have the assets to pull it off though. All they have is 6. You know what the perfect landing spot is for it? Well, I don't know if it necessarily qualifies now that Josh McDaniels is gone, but I mean, I said the Patriots. Deebo Samuel was a Patriots player coming out of that draft. I kept mocking him to the Pats over and over and over again, and then they freaking took N'Keal Harry, and Deebo Samuel was great.